Hi, good to see you. Thank you for coming. We're going to have a short breakfast bite information session about these ideas here. The ideas about Bitcoins, what are they, how do they work, a little bit about the idea of cryptocurrencies, what is it, how does it work, what the future of that might be, the idea of NFTs, okay, what they are, how do they work, etc. So we're going to have a look through all of those. There are some questions that I have. I'll try and go through those as best I can at the end. Please, however, feel free in the future, if you have any particular questions, to come and see me or send me an email and you can ask. Now, what we're going to be thinking about is, firstly, blockchain technology. We quite often forget that this is the platform, the structure that a lot of these understandings of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoins and NFTs, that's where this all comes from. This is the support of that, the foundation of that. The idea with blockchain technology is pretty much exactly as it sounds. It's like little networks of computers, like what we have now, and you'll have like a digital receipt, a digital token, and that token is then replicated across all of the other computers within that network. And what's really amazing about this idea is that it's the same token across them all. And if you make changes in one computer on one receipt, that change then gets replicated across them all. And the idea is they're supposed to be hack-free. They're supposed to be end-to-end encryption. All of those sorts of ideas. And it is looking like that's the way the internet's going to be moving as we go forward. Right? On this platform, all of the Bitcoins, cryptos, etc. rest. So if it isn't particularly stable, then yes, we've got some issues with regards to whether it will work or not. Right, so that's blockchain. Cryptocurrencies, right? Crypto, the superdog, quite clearly. Cryptocurrencies have been around as a concept for quite some time. Right? All the way back into the 1980s, we were discussing and trying to figure out how to use the internet, how to use electronic cash, how to create an electronic version of the payment methods that we have. So those sorts of ideas, digital wallets, all of that started happening back then. The progress has gone on, and one of the most successful parts of that has been through video games, where you've had digital currencies in the video games, and if you're a parent, you'll be very aware of this, like Robux from Roblox, for example, which are then used as a digital currency within the platform of the game to buy things within the game. Okay, one of the ones that became hugely popular, okay, one of the digital currencies, cryptocurrencies that became hugely popular is this idea of Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies technically aren't actually money. They are, the way they exist is more akin to an asset like gold, right? You actually mine for it, okay? You actually have to. There's a complicated process because there's a limited amount of them. Right? They do something called a halvening, where they split the amount in half so it doubles. There's a lot with it that is quite different from what we in the economics world describe as being money. Right? So thinking about the functions of money, etc. The cryptocurrencies don't quite do that. The cryptocurrencies have, however, allowed a non-usual route of payment. Okay, so it's like paying with an asset. So you own a piece of gold, so you're going to pay with your piece of gold. The advantage to that, particularly for some in the sort of the criminal underworld, right, so to speak, was that it meant that it was outside of the usual banking system, it was outside of government oversight, and so yes, Bitcoin in particular, and one or two others, has attracted a lot of perhaps not so ethically well-minded people. Right, and yeah, there's been some criminals who have been involved with it, and yeah, you can look at whether it was used to fund operations within the criminal world, etc. And that's not a good thing at all. There are also questions about the mining, right, and the environmental impact of that mining. There've been a number of studies that have come out about that. Some earlier hyped up the environmental impact, and there were some quite scary numbers with regards to the environmental impact of mining for, in particular, Bitcoin. And then there are other studies that suggest that maybe it's not quite as bad as it first seems. Okay. Bitcoin has taken off. It was a rocket. It wasn't necessarily the most stable currency. It wasn't necessarily the most protected currency. And as you've seen through the news, you will have seen that there are a number of quite high-profile cases where Bitcoin in particular was stolen from various exchanges, or people dropped their computer in a landfill because it was old and broken and they forgot that it had Bitcoin in it and they lost millions. And there's a number of those cases. So Bitcoin was quite early on out of the gate and became very popular. It was the trend, right, if you will, with regards to the popularity of Bitcoin as an asset, as a digital asset. The celebrities tended to get on board with it and promote it. It kind of grew and grew from that. So the demand, if you will, has been a little bit like what we refer to in economics as a speculative bubble. Okay? There was nothing particularly substantial holding the price up there. And when it reached heights, and it was like $60,000 US per coin, right? When you get to that sort of level, then you start to ask yourself the question, is it really that stable? And yeah, eventually it did crash, and it crashed considerably over the last few months. And it has even gone down to, I think, lose about 60% of its value, which is terrible for those who are counting on it as an asset that they would then have moving forward for their retirement, for example. It isn't something that I would necessarily suggest is a good asset to have in your portfolio. It is a trendy item. Yes, you can, and particularly the people early on, right, they did make a lot of money, right, from it. But as you can see, the change over time has been quite dramatic, right? A lot of people just assume it's going to keep going up and up and up forever. But as people who are aware of these sorts of environments will know, what goes up must come down. Okay, there is a downside to it, and for some, that downside has been pretty spectacular. All right. So yeah, you can get that roller coaster sort of approach, and some of these, like Bitcoin, some cryptos like Bitcoin, can go rapidly up and then rapidly down. And if you buy it at the right time, so buy low, sell high, yes, there are lots of people who make an absolute fortune from these. This type of asset tends to be one of those sort of more risky assets that you see. Most people back in the day, when they were thinking of investing, would probably prefer what is called more of a blue chip or a steady investment that just has a regular return over time. All right? And to sort of put that into even more focus, you'll be familiar with this idea. The Dogecoin, that's how I'm going to pronounce it, started out as a meme, right? And then the clever people decided to turn it into an actual cryptocurrency. And there's a number of other cryptocurrencies that are out there that we haven't mentioned, right? Ones like Ripple, which are so tiny and the changes that they make so small that they actually might potentially be quite a good investment at this point. We will see. But Dogecoin, as said, it was popular, it was trendy, people found it funny. So again, celebrities got attached to this coin and started actively promoting it themselves, and you see what happened. Whoosh, up went the demand for it. Okay, and then very shortly thereafter, the trend moved on to something else, and down it came again. Right, and these are the sorts of things that we see with these sorts of assets. Right, they aren't particularly stable growth assets. They are very much the ones that have a lot of risk attached to them. Now, I've mentioned this idea of blockchain technology, and one of the big parts of blockchain technology, one of the big players in it, is this idea of Ethereum, right? And this network, this platform that is built there using the blockchain technology, is considered by many commentators to be one of the most stable, all right? And it is a platform that they are hoping that will be able to be built upon even further as time goes forward, and more applications will happen within that particular platform. Some of the applications that they're talking about, things like smart contracts, that's incredible, an amazing idea, that like that digital token that you've got, which could be ownership of property. All right, so you know that you own the property, but when it changes hands, all of those receipts automatically change. So there's no worries about somebody trying to hack in and steal the ownership of it. I've got because it should be all secure, because every receipt says the same thing. And intellectual property, what's going to happen with intellectual property? Are we going to be able to lock it into these sorts of smart contracts? All of the business contracts that there possibly could be out there that could be turned into a smart contract, all digitized into these tokens, all moving through the blockchain networks and being very secure and updatable across the whole network, right? Should make things a lot more secure, but a lot more efficient, right? Thinking in economic speak. So there are a number of other aspects to that. Ms. Kay has a link, a site that I've created with even more thoughts on it and some research, etc., in there that you can look at. That will be on the site. All right. Okay. So whether Ethereum does become the future, we shall yet to see. Now, I was also asked about NFTs, the non-fungible tokens, which just means that they're unique. Right? That each one is supposed to be unique, no copy. So that is different from the cryptocurrencies, because the cryptocurrencies, by their very nature, they have to be the same. Right? These ones flips that idea on its head. Each one is supposed to be unique, but again, it's still that same idea. You've got a digital, in this case, piece of art, perhaps. Okay, all right, good old Bored Ape ones. Okay, and you own that, and then within the realms of the internet and the trading rooms, you might be able to trade these assets and earn some money from them. And certainly, again, people who are early adopters, there were one or two, like the Bored Ape people, who did make a lot of money in investing with NFTs. There are a lot of celebrities, including some quite recently, who have created NFTs and then attempted to sell them, and they haven't gone well. All right, the average price for NFTs a few weeks back was like $200 for an NFT, which, you know, when some people were thinking that they were going to be making their fortune from this, isn't going to make them a fortune. Now, it's like lightning in a bottle. If you hit the lightning, you are going to get something that's very successful. But these are very much trend-based. And the report the other day, I think it was yesterday even, suggested that NFTs have actually dropped by 75% in value, which is huge. And if they were what you were relying on in part of your investment portfolio, then, yeah, you've lost quite a bit from that particular portfolio. So, yeah, NFTs, they would be an interesting approach. There is an interesting idea. And if you've got a really marketable brand, something recognizable that you could convert to an NFT, if there was a market then for that, then, yeah, I could see that that could be something that would be quite interesting to have a go at. You know, from a graphics point of view, from a business point of view, it might be quite interesting, and just to see how popular that is. But again, the NFTs are all based on the platforms of the blockchain technology, so in particular Ethernet, right? So we are developing and experimenting with all of these different ideas because we as yet haven't got a firm handle on what the internet's going to be. Now, some of these NFTs are, you know, people had the same idea, right, in two different parts of the world, right? And then they create an NFT that's unique for them, and then they create one that's the same idea but unique to them, and then they're both trying to sell it in the same marketplace. So quite often you will find that. You will find that there are some platforms that aren't Ethereum that have actually collapsed, and there was one the other day that went bankrupt. And as a result, the liquidators had to move all of the digital assets from that platform onto another platform. Otherwise, you might just lose it all. There are some NFTs that are actually just attached to video games. And so therefore, the only way you can actually trade those NFTs is in the video game. All right? So it's only relying on those people within that game to actually buy and sell them. Also, you've got to wonder if the video game stops being made, what happens to the asset then? There's the other thing with the idea is that you can also get part ownership. So maybe it's one of the more expensive NFTs and you've got a sliver of the ownership of that. Well, yeah, we can see that. Just like people have a part of a Bitcoin, there is a value to that, but you actually don't fully own it, particularly if it's an NFT. You only own a small part of it. So you can sell your small part of it, but not obviously the whole asset in and of itself. So again, the validity of it as an investment, you've got to start to wonder whether it is worth it, whether it is a lot more speculative than meets your particular tastes. It might be something you want to gamble with and have a go at, in which case be aware of the risks, the downside to them. All right, so questions I had were about the actual risks involved with investing, which I think I've covered. I did get asked about the specifics to Malaysia. Now, a lot of governments around the world are investigating cryptocurrencies, digital exchanges, etc., and Malaysia is one of the countries that is actively doing that. Okay? Malaysia was very concerned also about scams and people losing their money and the downside to some of these platforms and some of these currencies. So Malaysia actually banned a couple of the crypto exchanges that were used quite heavily in other parts of the world. So there will be some people who were using those exchanges in those parts of the world who can't then use them here in Malaysia. Right. They have, though, said that there are official exchanges that they recognise and that they then have the opportunity to regulate and to work with, which is, I guess, one of the important aspects of this. Now, there is a site where I put a lot more information into. If you're interested and want to go through that, this video I'm going to then upload. I'm also going to put the video into the site, but the video in and of itself will go into the YouTube channel and one or two other places. All right, please, as said, feel free to ask any questions. Yes, about maths. Okay, yes, the question was about maths. Is there information about the maths behind it? Yes, well, there's a lot of maths behind it. You can just, even in computer science, there's a lot of information there. The actual equations that are used for the mining, this network and the structure of the blockchain in and of itself, there's a huge amount of maths involved with all of that. So yeah, if you are mathematically inclined, there is quite a bit that you can discover there. I've been interested in the economic side of it, but I am able to perhaps dig out some of those more mathematical understandings there, and I can probably make them available through the site potentially too. Otherwise, thank you very much. He kōrera, have a fantastic day. Remember, like and subscribe. That would be a good thing to do too.